This is Kari Peters Passing, the DIY funeral channel where you can learn how to make amazing celebration of life ceremonies for your loved one. Hi, welcome to the very first episode of Kari Peters Passing. In this show, we'll learn about non-traditional funerals and celebrations of life for your loved one. So a funeral doesn't have to be in a church or hall. It doesn't have to be conventional at all. We're going to learn how to make a DIY scattering urn. This urn can be filled with your loved one's cremated remains, set inside a lake, riverbed, or even in the ocean. It's eco-friendly, and the urn will float for a matter of moments at the end of your ceremony once you place it in the water. It'll gradually sink and disintegrate with no harmful effects on the environment. I look forward to teaching you how to do this. Let's get to work. The things that we're going to need to make our bio urn are going to be a blender, some rice, doesn't matter if it's white or brown, water, some towels, a screen strainer. You can't just use a hard colander. It has to have this flexible screen type of mesh. And if you don't have one of these, you can pick one up at the dollar store. This was $2. And a bag of cross-shredded paper. And this stuff, any office will have this. We need to get ourselves a pot. We're gonna put the rice in. We don't have to worry about boiling the water. We're gonna use about 1 cup of rice. And we're gonna fill this pot up pretty full. We're not making rice in a traditional way. We're just gonna boil this to a congee type of consistency where it's almost like a porridge and it's really runny. We wanna cook the rice as long as possible. Do not wash the rice. So we'll just turn that on. We wanna cook it for about 2 hours. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our colander and we are going to just trace around the perimeter like so. And we're going to cut this out. And we're not actually going to be using the inner circle, so we can get rid of that. And we're left with this shape. So now that we have this cardboard cut out and we've overlapped and taped this side, what we're going to do is we are going to tape all the way around. And remember, this is slightly narrower than the lip of the colander. What we're going to use this as is the base for the lip of the urn. And it will be what we attach our lid to. So, it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be perfect. All we're going to do is make sure that it's somewhat water resistant so that the paper pulp does not adhere to this part. All right, and we're going to set this aside for now, and we will be coming back to it very shortly. We're going to take our blender and we are going to make our paper pulp. We're going to take our bag of shredded paper and fill this about 3/4 of the way full. We're going to add some water so that our blender actually mixes it. So we'll have our pulp. It's a very mushy consistency. We are going to take our colander, put it inside the bowl, and we're going to pour all of this paper pulp into this colander. And as we put it in, we're going to press the water out. We're going to do maybe 7 or 8 blenderfuls full of paper pulp. You can dump the remaining water that is in the bowl into your houseplants. And just add that right on top of the other one and continue to press down just like this, working all the pulp around the perimeter of the colander. And if it slides down, that's not a big deal. We're filling it up anyways, and we're gonna press it all out after. Okay, so we have this thing pretty much totally full. We're pressing and packing all of this paper pulp in and around the edge of the colander, working it almost like some dough, and remembering to empty the bucket underneath because we want this pulp to be pressed and dry. You're probably going to notice that there is a puddle of water in the center of the colander as you press down and press the water out. And at this point, that is when we're going to start to use our towels. So we're going to go in after the bottom bowl has been emptied, and we're going to press all the way around with the towel, absorbing the water from the top and pushing it out through the bottom. And we want the pulp to be about 1 inch thick inside the colander. This is going to feel really heavy, but it will shrink and it'll get a lot lighter as it loses the water. So you can even put the whole towel in there and just push. We're going to take our cardboard that we cut out earlier and put some packing tape on, and we are going to just set it down, tape side up. We're going to fit it right on top of this colander that has the paper pulp in, and we're going to put that into the bowl. So now what we're going to do is continue to work as much of this pulp around. We might have to do one more blender full of pulp. The cardboard needs to have enough on there for a ridge for our lid to attach to. Got some left in here actually. We're just going to wring it out with our hands as best as we can. And we're just going to mold that to the top. It really separates once it's put into water, and any type of current will really help to break it apart. Going to pack it right onto the edge here. I'm going all the way around. Now you could bury this if you wanted, and it'd be totally fine in your garden. It will break down really quickly, which is what some people want. And we'll be doing other urns that are not all biodegradable. I'd like to do a resin urn workshop with you guys that you might want to keep in your home. It's kind of nice to have some nice digs for them. So we're just going to finish up the last of it here. Make sure it's wrung out really well before we put it on the cardboard. This seems very fragile right now, but once it dries, it's actually quite durable. What we can do around the edges so that it dries is take a towel and really push the last of that water out while supporting the edge. Pressing down. Okay, so now that we have the bowl formed, you can set the colander outside in the sun away from the bucket. That'll allow air to reach the bottom on both sides. I did find this basket that is used for hanging plants in my garage. Take the entire colander with the urn and the cardboard and just rest it inside there. You can set this without the basket outside, but it's not going to be as symmetrical because the screen is moldable. This will also allow it to dry a bit faster. So we'll just go and set this outside, or if you don't have a space outside, you can put it near a fan, or if it's winter time, you can put it over the register where the heat comes out. So we've completed the base part of the urn. Now what we need to do is complete the lid. We're going to take one of these towels and we're going to spread it out. You can do this outside if you have space. You might need a couple of towels to really press out the lid. But essentially this is just a regular paper making process. You can go and buy screen. I just took the screen out of my window and we're going to set it right on top here. And we're going to make more paper pulp. First things first, well, this one's already blended. So we're going to take the paper pulp and we're going to put it on this screen and just kind of spread it around. And we want to have a fairly large piece that is thinner, and this will give us a few extra options how we can decorate the urn. The structural component is very important, so let's just make sure that we have enough material since the drying time takes a bit. We'll be doing other urns in the future that are a little less messy and a little bit easier to put together, but I was really excited to share these ideas with you today. We're going to take a second screen and we're going to just put it on top and press it in. And then we're going to take a second towel and lay that on top and really press that down so that we have enough moisture coming out. This will speed up the drying time and compress that pulp. Now, in order to get enough pressure onto this and even it out, what you can either use a rolling pin. I don't have a rolling pin, but what I do have is this oven pan, which will work just fine. And we're gonna just press it along, spreading out that pulp and really wringing it out. We'll just set this aside. Take off our towel. And the screen will help to support the fragile paper pulp. Once this is dry, it's really durable. So I'm just gonna press this out one more time without, I just want it a bit thinner. And just wring it right out. And this will be the lid. What we want to do with this is put it in a well-ventilated area, preferably where air is able to reach both sides, and dry this out really nicely. So I've tidied up the area, and now what we're going to do is we are going to make the glaze, which will go over the urn, which will allow it to float for a certain period of time, depending on how heavy you put the glaze on. So we're going to go back to our pot of rice that has been cooking and has now cooled, which is a congee type of consistency. We haven't strained the rice, we haven't done anything other than put water in there and let it cook and turn to a porridge consistency. So we're going to take the rice and we are going to put the rice into this blender that we've cleaned out. Just set that aside. And we're just going to blend this so that it's a really smooth consistency. It looks like yogurt. And we're going to put this in a mason jar to use once the urn has dried, and this is what we're going to use to close the urn, to decorate it. It's just blended rice. This will have an easy time breaking down much more quickly, and it doesn't have any of the harmful chemicals that we find in other glues. So there's a lot of different ways which we can decorate the urn. We can get a watercolor set. If you're an artist, you could paint the entire urn. If you're not that artistic, this channel is aimed at anyone being able to build their own urn. So we're going to do something on the simpler side, and simple is often really beautiful. So I have some flowers here from my garden, and we're just going to take some of these pansies and some leaves. If you do not have any flowers on your patio or in your garden, there's a number of wildlife flowers and wildlife greenery that you can get at the park. Just bring your scissors and a bag and bring them back to your house, and we will press them in a book. And all you do is you just open the book, put the flowers inside the book, and we'll close them up and rest another book on top. And in a couple of days, they'll, well, even tomorrow, they should be dried out enough that they're easier to work with than just fresh flowers. Okay, so our urn has sat overnight, and we are going to now take off the cardboard here, and you just want to hold it tight. The inside is still a bit damp, but the edges, it was pretty windy here, so the edges are pretty dried out. You want to make sure that these are fairly set before taking off the cardboard. And that just slips off really easily. So now what we can do is, if you're in a hurry, what we can do is we can put this in the oven for 2 hours at 200 degrees or 250 and bake it really slowly. Otherwise, you can just leave it outside. So now that that's had a chance to cool, we'll take it out of the oven. And we set it on a cookie sheet inside there. So this colander is a bit tough to get off, but what we're gonna do is put our thumbs underneath the ridge here and just push up and forcing that mesh away from, it's a bit tough for sure, away from the paper pulp. So there we go, and just pushing all the way up like this. And now this is actually a very hard substance. It's like a heavy duty cardboard. And we're gonna go ahead now and cut our lid and then begin decorating. Okay, so we have our lid that we made on the screen here. This comes off really easy. And as I said before, like once this is dry, this has been 24 hours, we're just gonna slide our hand in behind. It's actually really quite durable. And I'm just gonna set this aside. We'll put it back on the window after. We're gonna go ahead, set this down. I actually made this one a bit small, but I had an extra one that I made just in case that is a bit bigger that we're gonna use for the lid. So here is our larger piece that we're going to use for the lid. And we're just gonna take the urn, we're gonna put it upside down, and we're just gonna trace around. We can trim this up after, but this just makes it a bit more workable. And cut this out. Then we are going to just move this excess stuff out of the way here. Now comes the fun part. This did turn a little bit brown from being in the oven, only on the top because I used a cookie sheet on the bottom. The inside will be a little bit brown, but the outside will still have that light colored area that we can easily decorate. So there were some weak points when I removed the urn from the colander around the ridge, and I'm just gonna go in with my rice glue and just reinforce those points. And this will actually dry a lot faster than the paper, and we'll have this all ready by tomorrow's service. And we can go ahead and flip that. We have our lid that is totally dry. The flowers dry overnight. And I'm just gonna put those onto the paper pulp urn, and we're gonna do something called decoupaging. And what this is we're just gonna put some rice glue on here. We're gonna take a pansy, we're gonna stick it in the middle. You can decorate this however you want. These flowers are not completely dry, but the glue will help to keep them in place and keep them from breaking. It's better to do them when they're at least a little bit dry. I prefer to use these wildflowers that I found. What I did was I just took these pieces from these carigana bushes and just kind of sprinkled them on top. So we're just going to add those in and add some more rice glue on top. The other thing that you can do is take some of the extra paper that we cut off from the edges, and you can actually scan the person's signature or a photo, and you can mount that on top to really personalize it. But I kind of like the simplicity of this. I'm just going to add this in. We can add in a few more flowers if we like, and this will dry clear. So don't be afraid to be quite liberal with the glue. So we do the same thing around the perimeter of the base here and decorate it just like that. And once we have the entire piece finished, what we can do is take the top lid and we can either take a drill or a hole punch and put some holes around the edges. And I tied the lid closed with some short pieces of jute, which is like a natural rope. So I'm just gonna set this unfinished one aside. And here is our finished urn. And what, as you can see here, I've put some holes around the perimeter and then alongside this ridge and tied the urn closed. You can tie the urn shut with grass, or you can use the twine, which is a little bit more substantial. You can bring this to the funeral home if you don't feel comfortable handling the ashes, and they will fill it for you. You can fill it yourself. This urn does not seal completely, and at Bed Bath & Beyond there is something called an eco bag or a green bag, and it breaks down in 3 to 6 months. Since it's in water, it's going to take about 3 months. So then you're not worried about the ashes spilling out, or if you do drop it, it'll be enclosed in the bag. So that's a safer option for transportation, especially if you're going to take this on a vacation, whether it's to the lake or to the ocean. Today's project cost less than $10, and we ended up with a lovely homemade scattering urn, and have a ceremony and release the ashes without having to handle them or have them blow in your face. There we have it, our water scattering bio urn. Thank you very much for watching today. If you enjoyed the episode, like and share. And every 2 weeks will be a new episode of different types of bio urns, DIY funeral stuff that you can do within a super low budget that is beautiful, exciting. See you in 2 weeks. On the next episode of Kari Peters Passing, we're going to be making this tree bio urn made out of natural materials, which is very durable and also quite visually appealing. Like and subscribe so you get first-hand information and share it with your friends.